Welcome back. You're watching the France 24 debate. We're looking at how the outrage over the abduction of an estimated 200 or more than 200 schoolgirls who were getting ready to sit their high school exams in the northeast of Nigeria near the borders with Cameroon and Chad were abducted by Islamist radicals who on Monday claimed responsibility, bragging even that they were going to sell them at market. Before we say hello to our panel, let's say hello to James Creedon. James, our Media Watch segment guru.
Evening, François.
The hashtag Bring Back Our Girls going global.
That's right, and it's been interesting to see how this has played out on social media. It's over 3 weeks now since those 200 or so schoolgirls were kidnapped, taken into slavery, and for the first week or so there was not a huge amount of conversation about that in the Western media. It took a while for that story to sort of get noticed, essentially. But one of the reasons that it became much more spoken about is the effort within Nigeria to speak about this and to get the word out on social media. So I'll just take you through some of the items that we're seeing. First of all, a petition on change.org, which was set up over a week ago with the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. That has now about 320,000 supporters, François. Yesterday, around the same time, it was 250,000. So you can see that it is really taking up. The momentum is rising on that. At thedailybeast.com, they're talking about a hashtag which may help rescue the enslaved girls. Now, from their point of view, it was slow to rise, and now it's almost like a tidal wave. In the last number of days, there really is a huge amount of discussion about this on social media. The hashtag Bring Back Our Girls has had over 1 million tweets in just 1 week. And you're seeing an awful lot of images such as this, a lot of them originating, the first images at least, in Abuja and elsewhere in Nigeria, with people getting out on the streets and protesting. Some of the leaders, of course, of that protest movement having been arrested since Monday, which is quite extraordinary. But you can see signs such as this: those who are quiet are as guilty. Can anyone hear me? A real plea for not just the Nigerian government to take note and the Nigerian public, but the global public to take note. Even Malala, you'll remember, who was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, a Pakistani girl who fought back against the Taliban, she got involved. That tweet is actually using a quote from Ban Ki-moon. Terrorists showed that what frightens them most is a girl with a book. All of this, of course, because the organisation behind this is against education, Western education, in particular for girls.
That's the name of the organisation.
There you go. And you can see here, too, that it was very quickly picked up before the broader public by associations such as UNICEF. This is a twit pic by Amnesty International, who drove that conversation or the buzz around it even further. Also, some pretty valid points being made here, François, by various activists. The life of the African girl has never held any value, perhaps exaggerating a little, but certainly in the spirit of this whole conversation in the media: nameless, faceless, defenceless. And one other comment: dare I ask what would have happened if there were 200 plus foreign, blonde, blue-eyed girls taken? Bring back the future of Nigeria. A lot of people saying if this had happened in Europe, this would be a massive story. It would have been a massive story from the outset. Why did it take so long for the media to realise, to realise the full extent of it?
All right, James Creedon.
Thanks, François.
Many thanks for that. In fact, we've heard comments to the same effect. One from Burnett on Facebook telling us what would have happened if it had been Jonathan's daughter or wife. I want to welcome back to this conversation Ayo SOGUNRO, attorney and writer, who is joining us from Lagos, Nigeria. Here in the studio, Nigerian academic Emmanuel, IGAH, the director of Phobos International, Julia OWONO of Internet Without Borders, and Prince Randy KOUSSOU, Alam-Sogan, chair and president of Blackline Rising Investment, just back recently from Abuja. Ayo, at the outset of our conversation, you denounced the heavy-handed approach of Nigeria's military in the way they've handled Boko Haram over the long run. Do you think this pledge by the United States to send hostage negotiators and the such is a good thing? Are you happy about that?
Yes, that's the point. Well, I would say heavy-handed as much as the term I used earlier, brute force. When dealing with people who on the surface looks ideologically prompt, you do not just go in with force. Force only breeds more force. You go in with some measure of intelligence as well. And that's a measure which I'm not certain the government has displayed so far. Now, intelligence would involve things such as the ability to infiltrate the group, the ability to psychologically destabilize them, while also psychologically building up confidence in the larger society. So you just don't have to work. You have to be seen to be working so that people have enough confidence in you as the government. And now that is exactly the kind of approach that the US is trying to help bring in, if indeed the US is committed to this. Because I personally would not rely on the ability of the US to resolve the situation for us, if we ourselves especially are not fully committed to resolving it in the first place. And this US business is almost a smoke screen by the government, because it first came up during his own interview when he started calling on the US. And if you look at the news much more critically, what you will hear is that there have been offers by Britain and offers by the US, not acceptance by the Nigerian government, or not cooperation by the Nigerian government. So for now, one can't really vouch for how effective US offer to intervene would be in the long run.
You're right. We have to wait to see how it's received in Abuja. People don't necessarily agree with your approach. Edward on Twitter saying the only solution in Nigeria is a military one. The sooner Nigeria's military steps up to the task, the sooner we will see peace. Again, Ayo Sogunro, it's how do you handle this? What do you do to rescue these girls?
The problem is, see the kind of person that spoke yesterday, Abubakar Shekau. And if you looked at the video very well, you'll see we had somebody whose hand was very jittery. He was talking, he was scratching his thigh, he was scratching his head. He was in balance. We had the impression we're talking to somebody. We are talking to somebody who is not even in control of what he's saying exactly. So that is a tough challenge for the Nigerian government. Should we have this person in front of a Nigerian delegation any day in a peace dialogue? I don't know how we can get something constructive and meaningful out of it. This is somebody saying we don't want Western education,
but
for
if
example.
you're the father of one of those girls, you'd probably prefer negotiations over the army going in there guns a-blazing.
Of course. Now we are in a situation of hostage taking. Yeah, all cannot be resolved by military intervention. First of all, where are these girls? Where are they? So for army to swoop in, the army has to locate these people. And we don't know whether they're still in Nigeria, whether they're in Chad, whether they're in Cameroon. So that is a big issue. I think when we have Boko Haram saying they don't want Western education, and they are using YouTube, they are using guns, they are using bombs, they are using cell phones, all that are products of Western education to combat a nation. I think this is just a terrible paradox and contradiction.
All right, we've just gotten confirmation. Ayo will be interested to hear this, that Nigeria says the U.S. is sending it, so they are sending security personnel and assets as well to rescue the girls. Nigeria, which says puts the number at 276 girls. Is this good news again, Julie OWONO?
Well, any hand is, of course, helpful, but it's not the panacea. It's not the solution. It's just the beginning of another problem, because it doesn't solve eventually what's really at stake. What's at stake, in my opinion, is Nigeria not being, of course, the first economic power in Africa, but not being alone. It has counterparts in Cameroon, in Chad, in Niger, and all these regions which is suffering from this plea today. So obviously, for me, the solution lies into sub-regional cooperation, more cooperation with neighboring countries, and more dialogue. Because you cannot, when you have porous borders, as it is the case between northern Cameroon and Chad, it's impossible to say that you bring out the United States, you'll bring out France, you'll bring out, and you don't even solve what's closest to you. So in my opinion, any hand is helpful, but it's not, it's just the beginning of another problem.
Prince Randy, there is an organization in West Africa called ECOWAS, which brings together all of the countries there. But there is a lot of suspicion between neighboring states. When you're in Benin, you see that Nigeria looms large.
Correct. I want to take on some of the points that were made earlier. I believe that reaching out for help to the US should be purely from an intelligence perspective. If the United States really wants to help Nigerian government with this investigation, they should provide Nigerian government with the sort of intelligence that will help them to investigate, and not a full-blown troops and guns and so on. Because we have to learn from our mistakes. Look at Libya. Where is Libya today? NATO and all these countries, the UK, France, the US, they supported the stabilization of Libya. Today, Libya is still in flames, being run by terrorists, being run by completely disjuncted people. Look at the situation in Egypt today. Where is the Muslim Brotherhood that Obama was supporting? They're all in jail now. So we have to be intelligent in our approach. We need to be able to solve our own problems. We have the African Union. We have the ECOWAS. Let's join hands. Let's work together. Let's create a real African-powered intelligence services to solve our own problems. The African Union was not created just to sit back and have fancy conferences and talk about things that they're going to do, but they never do. So let us create this new generation of African people. We need to stand up. We need to create a task force of people who are about real solutions, not just talks. So on the ECOWAS point that you made, indeed, we have a regional community which is trading very well economically. I mean, I think that it's a good organization, but in terms of security cooperation, there's still a lot of setbacks. There's still a lot of flaws. So this is something that needs to be addressed. We have to sit down with the African Union, with ECOWAS, even with SADC, the Southern African Development Community, with the East African Economic Community, and to collaborate, all of us, on how we can find solutions for African problems. Massive guns and massive bombs don't solve anything. We've seen Iraq, we've seen Afghanistan, Libya, Egypt, and so on. Look at Central African Republic today. So the main rationale, the root of all these problems is social injustice, economic equality. We need to create jobs. We need to create jobs.
Yes. We're going to get to that point in a minute. Still a lot of reactions coming in. One saying, I don't think the location of the girls is rocket science. If the government acted fast and not nonchalantly, we wouldn't be here. Over the past few days, we've also seen a very public row between the people at the State House in Abuja and some of the victims' families and the activists representing the First Lady's spokesperson, flatly denying ordering the arrest of two protest leaders who were, according to police, not arrested but invited to an interactive and fact-finding interview. The state news agency of Nigeria quotes First Lady Patience Jonathan as saying, "You are playing games. Don't use school children and women for demonstrations again. Keep it to Borno State. Let it end there," end quote. The First Lady at times emotional in a late-night session with representatives of the Chibok victims.
Now the First Lady is calling you, come, I want to help you. Come to find your child, your missing child. Will you keep quiet? No. Child, there is God, oh. There is God, oh. The blood we are sharing, there is God, oh. 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 There is God.
All right, let me get your reaction, Emmanuel Iga.
Well, yeah, it's quite emotional, yes. First Lady is probably in her role.
But there was also the very
public
what has
finger
pointing as well
in this
during
issue
that session.
here was that there was a kind of second enlarged stakeholders meeting to discuss this issue, and the First Lady of Borno State, that is the wife of the governor of Borno State, who was, according to the First Lady, supposed to be the mother of these girls that were kidnapped, because these girls were kidnapped from her state. First Lady says, I am the grandmother, you are the mother. You should come to this meeting and be with us. And apparently, the First Lady of Borno State did not attend the meeting. So that really led to this emotional outburst. But I think the issue we have on hand now is how the government has been coordinating the search operations and communicating on it too. We are asking, a lot of Nigerians are asking, just like a tweet asked, how right at the onset, 200 people, 200 or more, were captured by terrorists. By what kind of logistical means? What convoys did they use? What vehicles did they use? Did they go on main roads? Did they go through the bush? If they went through the bush, if they went through forests, did villagers not see them? Did no farmer see them? Did no cattle rearer see them in the bush? If they are on the main roads, we have military checkpoints all over the place. This is a state which has been, Borno State, which has been under the state of emergency for months now. So the military are everywhere in this part of Nigeria. So really, we don't know how this group of girls could just disappear with their kidnappers into the thin air. That is the big question that Nigerians are asking.
Ayo SOGUNRO, your reaction to the First Lady's pronouncements?
See, let's call it a spade here. The average Nigerian has lost confidence in the abilities of Goodluck Jonathan's administration to handle this terrorist situation. We have lost so much confidence, so much that even if we see any action now being purported to be taken, even if we see any outburst, any hysterical display, we are not moved. The general reaction to the First Lady's session and the was one of laughter. People found it amusing. It's a comedy meme on the social media right now, because people do not trust the government anymore. So now the First Lady's concern might have been genuine, it might have been staged. I don't know. I'm not privy to her private thoughts. But the point is, people do not care about how she reacts. And the underlying explanation would be, where was she 3 weeks ago when the news first broke? Emotional displays are spontaneous upon the happening of an event, upon the first time you hear of an event. They do not come later on when you've had time to think and reflect over this. So if she's going to be hysterical, or if she's going to be properly, how will I put it, reactive, it should have happened a long time ago. No Nigerian, or at least no average Nigerian, is going to be taken in by that scene. No. I still find it comical, actually, and I'm really looking forward to a situation where we eventually just dismiss it and say, look, they are not relevant to the scheme of affairs in these things. Let the president himself decide what's going on and what's going to happen.
All right, a harsh verdict there from Ayo SOGUNRO, calling it comedy. Let me ask you, Prince Randy, about the timing of all of this. There's the political timing. Next year is a presidential election in Nigeria. And then in the very short term, there is this World Economic Forum that's opening in Abuja with the Chinese Prime Minister coming. This was billed as a big celebration of Nigeria leapfrogging South Africa. Now, you've mentioned that income inequality, the haves and the have-nots in Nigeria go a long way towards explaining what's going on with Boko Haram. Do you believe that Nigeria becoming the continent's top economy is something worth celebrating in this current context?
It's an interesting question, but a tough one at the same time. 40% of Nigeria's population lives in the poverty, under the poverty line, which is something terrible. And efforts are being made to address that. It's not easy to make a country completely poverty-free. I mean, I see homeless people here in Paris in the metro. So we have to put things in perspective. The World Economic Forum being held in Abuja for the first time since its creation in Switzerland is a big leap for West Africa and for Nigeria in particular. I believe that the situation with the schoolgirl kidnapping is a tent. It's a black cloud under, in the midst of things that are happening. But we shouldn't let it deter us from promoting the benefits of Nigeria as a new biggest economy in Africa. Right now, Nigeria is on the course to become one of the world's top economies by 2025. Which is very important.
But is it going to be an easier place to do business? I point, for instance, to the news we've gotten that the central bank governor, Lamido Sanusi, who's been suspended after he blew the whistle on missing oil revenue, he was prevented from leaving the country by the president's office, it seems, and this despite a court order saying he could travel abroad.
That's another story. I think it's complex to comment on those issues because we don't really know what happened. The news don't always reflect the exact the real reason for certain situations, such as the situation with Sanusi. So of course, corruption is still a big problem, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa as a whole.
Is it an easier place to do business than before, or
it's a much easier place to do business. People need to be encouraged, and that's what we're trying to do, us young Africans of the new generation, working together with our global partners. I mean, my group, for example, we work a lot with the GCC countries, the Middle East and Southeast Asia and some other European countries, including the US as well. So I think we need to really try to focus on the positive. There's always going to be some setbacks. There's always going to be some negative aspects of any economy, of any country. But if we only focus on the negative, we don't make any progress. So what we have to do is to put together our efforts in order to combat these blocks, these obstacles that we are facing now through further push into investment, into job creation, into diversification of the economy from only oil. Even the Nigerian government, I can tell you because I've been sitting with some of their members recently in Abuja, even the Nigerian government has made it a priority to utilize a good portion of the oil revenues to develop the agricultural sector, to invest more in education, to invest more in healthcare. You cannot transform a country overnight. We just recently become the Africa's largest economy a month ago. So we need to give it a little bit of time and to be more optimistic.
Are you optimistic, Julia OWONO, about Nigeria?
Of course, I'm optimistic about Africa in general, but I'm also realistic. And I'm saying that, of course, economy is important. But what's happening today with these young girls in Nigeria specifically is a proof that economy is not enough. It doesn't do everything. It's just a little part of the reality. And probably what citizens are calling for, and that's why probably they are impatient, is that it's been years, 40 years that we've been expecting for what's happening at the moment, the so-called African Renaissance. And we want to see that Renaissance at all stages of the debate, either economically, socially, democratically, politically, on every stages. And that's why there are initiatives by citizens more and more today to address these issues. So in my opinion, it's not enough being the first economic African power. It's just a part of the reality. The majority of the Nigerian people today are expecting more socially, and Africans in general, socially and politically in terms of rights.
Emmanuel, when you think back to the Nigeria that you knew growing up, what do you think it's going to be like in 20 years? With this bigger gap between rich and poor?
Of course, the gap is there. The gap is very big. And it can only be resolved by sustained efforts by the government, successive governments that will come, and the recognition that, yes, this is the only way we can make the country peaceful. It's the only way the rich can, let me say, sit and enjoy their wealth. It's also to make some room for the poor to come up out of poverty. But then, when people say that the issue with Boko Haram is mainly an issue of the difference in social and economic situations between the citizens in Nigeria, it's not really so. And I can see that today, the leader of Boko Haram is not even talking about the situation of the poor. He's just asking for, religious transformations in the country to make the country a radical
All right, so
Islamic
these are
state.
not people you're
that
saying
is
that
asking for. And secondly,
with whom you can reason.
Exactly. Secondly, just one thing.
We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, because
Okay.
we're out of time. Emmanuel, IGAH, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Prince Randy KOUSSOU Alam-Sogan. I want to thank Julia OWONO and as well Ayo SOGUNRO for joining us from Lagos. Thank you for being with us here. Thank you for all your reactions in the France 24 debate.